Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of the Intentional Beacon podcast. And this is a platform where we shine light on the power of intentionality and authenticity. What do I mean by that? I mean, this platform is dedicated to hearing the unique stories of our guests about how they've been deliberate to navigate life challenges with clarity, purpose, and also to become impactful, to make a difference in the areas their expertise, they are expert in. So today, I just thank you for listening in. I'm not going to take much of your time and to welcome our special guest, Stephen Leggett. Thank you so much. She's a transformational coach who is passionate about supporting and helping many with chronic conditions to use alternative interventions to overcome diabetes, type 2 condition. It deals with other chronic conditions, but may be the main topic. We'll talk about it, and maybe we will get him back to tell us about the rest of the chronic conditions. So thank you so much, Stephen. It is an honor to see you, to have you as a guest at this time, and for taking time from your busy schedule. I appreciate it. So without taking much time, I'll allow you to be the celebrity and introduce yourself to our audience, our listeners, and how you would like them to know you.
Gifty, what a lovely introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Stephen Leggett. I'm otherwise known as the Diabetes Destroyer, and more recently, the Wellness Codebreaker. And perhaps we'll dive into those two fame names, I call them, later. But really, the Diabetes Destroyer describes very well what I'm all about, really, because I have a very simple vision. And that vision is, Gifty, to rid the world of type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
It's a scourge on this country. It's a scourge throughout the world. There are 5 million people alone in this country that have type 2 diabetes. And, they estimate that there are probably a further 20% that have it, that are walking around with it and just don't know.
Wow.
So the numbers are horrendous, and the amount of resources that this takes in terms of our healthcare system is similarly huge. So while it's a little different, me tackling it in America, for example, than it is here, the difference is that in America, for example, it costs on average $10,000 more per head for a type 2 diabetic to get through hospital costs and general medicine costs than it does for somebody who hasn't got it. So that's the comparator here. But in the UK, obviously, we have this wonderful thing called the NHS. And once you're diagnosed with diabetes, you're allowed to, you get, if you're on medication, this medication might be provided to you free of charge. Of course, there's nothing free, but anyway, free of charge. So the incentive to do something about it is a little different. And that's why I focus my attention on entrepreneurs, business owners, time-based earners, people whose livelihoods can potentially get hit really hard by type 2 diabetes. I mean, Gifty, just to kind of give you an idea, between 2015 and 2022, when
Wow.
I was insulin dependent, I lost in excess of £250,000
Wow.
in fee income because my mental state was not in a good place, and I was falling out with my clients, and my
Okay.
assignments were getting shorter, and I wasn't getting the fee income anymore.
Wow.
Now, not everyone will be impacted to such an extent.
Mm.
But the fact is, if we run businesses, then that business is our livelihood.
Yeah.
And this, any chronic condition, but particularly type 2 diabetes I'm talking about, can really damage your business.
Wow. Wow.
Because it's your health that underpins your business. That's what gives you the energy. That's what stands behind your passion.
Yeah.
Doing
Yeah.
what you're called to do. So if you can imagine trying to do your business without that passion, without that motivation, it gets very hard. And so that's why I focus on those who are in business.
Okay. Thank you
The right solution.
Right. Thank you for, giving the extent of the damage and also the impact on our society, and the cost is huge.
It is.
Somebody may be thinking, what is diabetes type 2? What is it that is affected in our body?
Okay.
Can you briefly give our listeners what you mean by diabetes?
Okay. Type 2 diabetes is the most common form of diabetes. 90% of all diabetes is type 2. It used to be called, back in the early noughties, it used to be called late age onset diabetes.
Okay.
Because traditionally it used to apply to older people, typically over 50s. But now, well, in 2004, they realized that the prevalence of the disease at lower ages was so high, it was really a poor description of the condition to call it age onset, because the onset was much lower. In fact, there is an ethnic difference as well. So, for example, for Southeast Asian, for Afro-Caribbean people, they can get the condition normally, perhaps 7 or 8 years younger than Asians can. So, the whole idea of age onset diabetes, it's out the window now. And type 2 diabetes is basically a disease of inflammation, but predominantly shows through as insulin resistance.
Right.
So basically, when we our metabolic system, we produce a lot of glucose through our liver, and that gets delivered to our brain and to our muscles and becomes stored as glycogen. Now, effectively, for a type 2 diabetic, that sugar in their blood isn't able to get into those cells.
Wow. This needs more biology inside.
I'm sorry, I didn't know what.
But you simplify it. I think, when was the turning point for you to realize that diabetes type 2, it is possible to reverse it in your situation?
Right. So I got type 2 diabetes in year 2000. And between 2000 and 2012, I reversed my type 2 diabetes twice. I did it through diet and exercise, which is a very traditional approach. And it worked for a short period of time. But each time, Gifty, that diabetes came back.
Wow.
And I was really quite distraught, quite upset about the fact it had come back. And then I went through a period when I was, as I say, insulin dependent, where my mental health just fell apart. And as I say, I lost lots of money. But then in 2022, a good friend of mine lost his leg due to uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. That happened in November. Of course, Christmas follows a month afterwards, and my son, who was 7 at the time, we'd had a lovely Christmas with mum and dad's, and we were just sat on the sofa watching a movie. And the advert break came on, and Luke turned around and he said to me, "Dad," I said, "Yes, Luke." "Dad, your friend had his leg chopped off because of type 2 diabetes. When are you having yours done?" And that was the kind of kick up the backside, get your body into motion, do something about it thing. Up to that stage, I'd wanted to, but perhaps not wanted to enough.
No.
But that was the only motivation I needed. I mean, my son's 7, and I want to see him grow and prosper and maybe have children himself. I'd love to have grandchildren. And, you know, my son was born when I was 48.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, how old will I need to be? So I need to be about 118 to see grandchildren. And I thought to myself, well, nobody with type 2 diabetes lives to 118.
No.
So that's the first thing I have to sort out, so that, you know, I can be around for my son.
Wow, that is an incredible catalyst, a light moment for you and, you know, for him as well. That means he's been going through his mind as a young person, trying to make sense of what is happening to that, caring in a caring way. But the impact was huge. And thank God for the courage, the breakthrough to observe and to speak out, for you to even know that. That is amazing.
Well, I thank God for what he said to me.
Yes.
It made a huge difference. And, you know, going back to your question of how did I find out it could be reversed? So I'd had my 2 reversal periods. So I knew it could be reversed. But what I didn't know is really the secret sauce, the thing that was going to keep it away. And that was my real discovery. Because while diet and exercise are pretty crucial, it's like diet and exercise alone is like having a stool and only attaching 2 legs. At some stage, you're going to end up on your backside. You need that 3rd leg, and that 3rd leg is actually healing. It's healing that goes on in here. It's healing using your subconscious mind in order to unpack and remove those traumas and that past, that history that really sits as an important root cause of your diabetes in the first place.
So
that's the big difference with what I try and do. I look to the root cause, Gifty, and I look to not only reverse it, but to heal. So to come back, and it gives the client the tools so that they can detect when things aren't going right and they can self-correct afterwards.
Wow. That is some breakthrough for you. And we shared that moment with you. And I heard you say, you know, the habit was resorting to dietary needs, exercises, but the key thing that gave you the top up was the mindset shift. and to
Absolutely.
sustain it. And I think when people are listening to that, one has to be intentional, which hence you're intentional because, and
Yeah.
also being perseverant, determination. So they all actually contribute to sustaining, to overcoming this enemy, let me put it, as in our life. So
They
thanks for
do.
sharing that.
They do
And
because in
sorry,
in
please.
in my head, I have a very clear vision. When things aren't going right, I know the consequences of that are lost time with my son, and that's
Wow.
all I need to remind myself of. To
Wow,
put
I love that catalyst, and we thank God for your son indeed, and that it also indicates you have such a bond that it gave him the courage to share that with daddy, taking each other's name. Thank you for sharing that. So that means there are some misconceptions. You know, my basic thing is this something that cannot be healed or one cannot, but there may be other conceptions. Can you give us one or two so that people
yeah,
who have similar ideas
yeah,
it can be diffused on this
yeah,
platform, please?
sure. So I think it was Professor Roy Taylor back in 2014 that really showed how type 2 diabetes develops and that it can be reversed. And this was studies he did at the using MRI machines, etc., at Newcastle University Hospital. From then on, it was clear that reversal was possible. But it's amazing, Gifty, how slow it takes the medical profession in order to learn something new. Because before he discovered that, before he discovered the root cause, etc., it was just described as a chronic condition, and treatment was medical treatment with tablets or insulin or whatever was really the only way of dealing with it. So scientifically, that opened up the field in terms of the possibility and the potential for reversal. But what I found is that the condition itself, and this is common with, I would guess to some extent, certain other chronic conditions as well, that there's a genetic factor. The scientific community knew there was, because if, for example, your mum or your dad has type 2 diabetes, statistically, you are 2 or 3 times more likely to get diabetes yourself. So we always knew there was, for a long time now, we've known there's been a genetic component to the risk factor. But what we, and I think what's been really quite interesting recently is the amount of money and effort being put into epigenetic research. So looking at how these things can be passed down through generation. Even, for example, they've done some studies around a Holocaust, those who were involved in the Holocaust, and how they passed on that PTSD and other mental health conditions to future generations, even though they weren't involved. So a really important thing I do for my clients is I actually, as part of the healing process, we uncover what generational impact there's been on health. And energetically.
I guess it's similar to every condition as a healthcare professionals, anything, because one may argue with the genes, and so it can also be kept in the family, pass it on, talked about, and also they do impart on the hearing of the next generation to connect. But of course, physically and scientifically. But I want us to go on to your system, the diabetes destroyer, because of time, and the wellness Codebreaker. It is quite a huge name, but what inspired you to create that, and what is it for?
The diabetes destroyer is, I wanted to come up with a very, very simple name that explained what I did, and also gave people a sense of hope, a sense of, we've got Hero on our side.
Yes.
And, we're going to destroy diabetes.
Yes.
And as I say, it was really to match up with that big vision I've got, which is to rid the world of type 2 diabetes. And who better to do that than diabetes destroyer?
But you've mentioned you want to give people hope. I want us to home in that, because, of course, what I hear you say is that every condition, particularly diabetes type 2, is subject to change. It is feasible to eradicate it. And that hence your destroyer and also Codebreaker. I love that. And of course, I love that.
And what happens is, unfortunately, because this gets labeled as a chronic condition, that simple word chronic really drains clients, it really drains everyone of hope. Because chronic, when I say the word chronic to you, when people say it to me, I think of something relentless, something untreatable, interminable. And so it's very difficult to maintain a good level of hope when you're given given the words that you have a chronic condition.
Wow.
So I want to restore hope in people, because without hope, without imagination, without a sense that things can get better, then you disempower the client, patient, take action themselves, and you become overly dependent on perhaps the medication. Things that you get from the doctor. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say to anyone, I couldn't advise anyone to stop taking medication. But what I do say to my clients is, in working with me, they should keep very close relationship with their pharmacist, with their doctors, because things will change for them. And they will inevitably require a change in their medication as we go through this process. So it's all about hope. I'm all about, restoring hope for people. And that's why I just love doing what I do, Gifty.
Well, I think it's amazing service. And we're going to come on to you sharing how people, our listeners, can connect with you. I know you've got an upcoming webinar on the 22nd soon. And so I don't want us to miss the connection, although after this conversation, I'll add the details. But if you can share briefly how you can be connected with, that would be appreciated.
I'd love to. As you quite rightly mentioned, on the 22nd of February, which is a Saturday, between 10 and 12, I'm doing a masterclass together with a demonstration, because it's so difficult to explain to people how this healing works, and how amazing it is. And I've got loads of testimonials which you can see on my YouTube channel. So that's a common tag for me. The YouTube channel is at the diabetes_destroyer, and I'll give you all this for the show notes. So the diabetes_destroyer, and that's the same handle I use for Instagram as well. So you can find me on that handle. On Facebook, I'm simply the Diabetes Destroyer or Stephen Leggett. And I even do TikTok too, and you'll find me there.
Wow, you are
The
too advanced.
diabetes underscore destroyer there as well. TikTok was
Wow.
kind of a bit of fun for me. It's I guess
Okay.
traditionally you'd think the age range was a bit lower, but the way I like to reach people on TikTok, because they might not be the person with type 2 diabetes, but their mum or their dad
Yeah,
is,
Or
and they can act
friends.
as catalysts for their own change within their family, or
Oh,
friends, like you said.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes. I mean,
a bit
today
of
I
fun.
mentioned it to someone I came across as well. So we will have
Okay.
to pass it on. And I think to summarize it, this is your journey to overcoming this type 2 diabetes is incredible. And you've shared your heart in terms of your insight and your passion. I can feel it. Your
Yeah.
passion to empower many to have the same
Definitely.
journey and not lose hope. And so that is your key message I can hear. Yes, there is medical model, and you are not denying that, but you're also sharing the good news, what has helped you to also empower others to be intentional, to
Yeah.
follow just simple system, the diabetes destroyer, and also wellness Codebreaker, so that they can also achieve the same results. What an amazing journey! And just to give our audience, I know the time is right, but give our audience one takeaway in terms of advice you want them to.
Right. I'm going to do a couple of them. The first one is to know with absolute certainty that type 2 diabetes can be reversed.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
it is possible. And
mm.
why would you want to? Well, maybe you don't like the brain fog that you're going through, or the fact that you need to worry about how much insulin you need to inject with each meal. Maybe you don't like the anxiety that goes along with any chronic health condition, and just maybe that's damaging your business or your career.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow,
So
wow.
it can be done. And
It
the
can be.
secret is you need to find the right guide.
Wow, wow. And thank you for sharing that. And I think we need to come back and unpack a lot of, because it's such a broad area for people to be connecting with. But I hope your webinar, many connect with it as we advertise. So for our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. You've heard the nuggets of wisdom, shared the expertise and the expert knowledge about how to break through and overcome diabetes type 2 with intentionality and staying true to your mission that you can't destroy it. And for our guests, it's such a joy to have you. And I believe we have to come back and complete it. It sounds like there's more to know. And thank you for taking time to join me on this intentional Beacon podcast. For our listeners to connect with you, we hope to advertise it a bit more. And so for until we meet again, uh, please keep on being intentional, keep on shining in the areas you've been called, and apply the nuggets of wisdom that our guest Stephen has shared with us. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well,